is I have a story to tell. And today I have one of my favorite people in the world, a friend from way back when, but a star in his own right, an icon, a Highlife icon, and one of the most beautiful people I've ever known for years. Friendly, outgoing, a good person. I'm talking about one of Ghana's Highlife greats, Ben Brako. Ben, welcome to I Have a Story to Tell.
Thank you so much, Fritz.
Yeah. I've known you for years, but this is your story to tell. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your early beginnings, where you were born, school, that kind of thing.
Wow, that's a long story. I'm well over half a century of stories to tell. Yeah. But my name is Ben Brako. I was born my an agricultural officer with the Ministry of Agriculture, later on Cocoa Affairs, and my mother was a teacher. So we were based in Cape Coast, but my father used to be posted to all these villages, because he was dealing with cocoa, and so we used to go and live in the villages. But we lived in what they call bungalows, which were the residences that were created for the white guys.
Yeah.
So it was a bit outside the village. But, we went to school in the village, we interacted with the villages. And so I had a lot of very varied experience living in Cape Coast and then living in very rural areas, But that got me very close to traditional culture, And the funny thing is that between the two places, one was considered bush, and the other one was considered like civilized, And so the never the twain shall meet,
That's right.
And so we're more or less forced to dissociate from,
The village life.
Yeah, the village life. But it was very exciting, very interesting. And I got to learn a lot, about traditional life, about how people thought and behaved, and their culture, and it was very exciting for me.
Yeah, and early days going through the rural areas and coming back to the urban areas, and Cape Coast is a town of beautiful nonsense, as they always say. Very fascinating place with a rich heritage and a rich history.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I gather, after primary school, what did you do? Where did you go to your secondary school?
I went to St. Augustine's College in Cape Coast, But before St. Augustine's College, I went to over 10 primary schools.
What?
Yes, because we moved a lot. So in Cape Coast alone, I went to 3 schools.
Right.
And I went to, at one time they thought we were moving around too much, so they sent us to St. John's Preparatory and Primary.
All right.
And
where's that?
Oh, in Accra.
Oh, in Accra.
Yeah, it used to be at a place called Royal Castle.
Oh, yes, okay.
And then they moved to a farm in Saum Road, and then it went to mile 7 on the Saum Road. That's where they built their structure. We were part of the people who built that school.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So, is that where you went to secondary school from?
No.
Okay.
I went to Widiba Don Bosco because my mom was taking a course at the uni there.
That's right.
And then I went back to Cape Coast St. Augustine's Practice School.
All right.
And then that's where I took my common entrance.
Why St. Augustine's? Why did you choose St. Augustine's?
I didn't choose St. Augustine. It was chosen for me. Because the headmaster was a friend of the family, and he insisted that I should go there. Yeah.
So you ended up in St. Augustine's, which is one of Ghana's premier and top-level schools.
Finest schools, yes.
Yes, you could say that. And that's where, when I had finished Form 5 and I was doing my World War II, and I was living in Elmina, my elder brother Francis was in Augustine's with you.
Yeah.
And there was a relationship of a kind because you had started, I think, a band called the Famous Flames.
That's
you
right.
were all part and parcel of it.
Yeah.
And I used to come and hang around with you when you were around playing in the schools and everything.
That's right.
Right. St. Augustine's, before we get down to the Famous Flames, what was the experience of being in St. Augustine's like? I mean, you traveled around the rural areas, the growing areas in Ghana. You had a stint in Accra and in Cape Coast. Yeah. And now you were in one of the...
Suhum, Sunyani.
Yes, all the growing areas. Yeah, really fascinating.
Yeah. And even in Cape Coast, right?
Yes.
I lived in a place called Sudu.
Sudu,
now,
yes.
Sudu is a very typical village setting.
Right.
Okay? But then they built some estate houses there. And it wasn't occupied by the people in Sudu. It was occupied by the so-called gentrified people who came in. So they, were snobbish towards the Sudufu, So I had the same contrast, even in Cape Coast, but just outside the door, one yard here is Sudu, and then back to the estate.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had seen Sudu and then St. Augustine's.
Yeah.
What was the school like from, let's say, Form 1 to Form 5?
Oh, it was interesting. The thing is, it is a Catholic school.
Right.
And I was not raised as a Catholic.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was raised as a Methodist by my grandmother and my mother, and so I found it very disturbing initially, having to go to the Catholic Church. And at that time...
Were you forced to do so?
Yes, it was compulsory.
Right, to go to Mass?
Yeah. And, they used to speak Latin.
Right.
And the whole Mass was in Latin. And I couldn't understand a word, and you had to, there was this call and response thing where they say something.
Right.
Dominus vobiscum, we say, Esco Spiritus Tutu, and all kind. And I didn't understand a word, I found it very distracting.
Yeah.
And so I started dodging Mass because it was pointless to me,
All right.
But it was a great experience.
Were you ever caught when you dodged Mass?
Funny, I wasn't.
Oh. So you escaped punishment?
Yes, I did.
Right. You said that St. Augustine's is a Catholic school, so there must have been a lot of students from all over Ghana.
Oh, yes.
Because it was the premier secondary school for Catholics, along with Opokuari at the time. Mm-hmm. So how did it build you up? What sort of experiences do you have that have made you what you are today?
Well, the discipline was good. It was strict, and I think one learned about processing one's life in a certain way. Discipline. Yeah. So, and then the competition with students. And then also the interaction with other schools. Cape Coast is full of schools.
That's right.
So it was exciting. I wasn't a bookworm, so I found pleasure in so many other activities going on in the vicinity. And it was a vibrant social scene.
Because I know a little bit about you. You say you weren't a bookworm, but you were sharp. You were not somebody who failed exams. And I'm saying that.
Okay.
And so, how did you do it? I mean, naturally you read, you had exposure, You'd been to the rural areas. Your father was, let's say, a cocoa extension officer, giving advice to cocoa farmers and things like that. And you saw something of your father working and all that. So with that exposure and meeting all these people, I mean, what sort of uplift did it give you?
Well, it showed me, that the world is full of a variety of people, and you have to learn to accept who you are and who others are,
Right.
So learn to coexist peacefully. And I don't know, it was just a bizarre experience in a lot of ways, because like we had these brothers, they call them, from the Catholic Church,
Right.
from America, who came to the school, because it was a Catholic school, and they used to teach various, what do you call it? Subjects, they call them, yeah. And one of them was called Brother Eduardo.
All right.
And he taught no particular subject, but he took pleasure in disciplining the students, And he, the funny thing is, every day there'll be a roll call in the dining room for people who are under punishment, and every day had a long list, and he will send us to the land, the bushes around, and make us weed and dig, and then finally fill it back.
Really?
Yes, and I used to totally dislike that. I thought that if I was going to be punished, at least it should be something constructive.
Right.
That kind of thing. So, we had so many experiences there. It was a wonderful thing. And then there was, we were one of the first schools to form a school band, which was very exciting for me, Yeah, so it gave me a whole varied.
So when did you start? Because I know that Augustine's had a band called the Relics before the Flames. Am I right?
Yes.
And I if I may intervene a bit, I know that the whole music scene in schools really was sparked off by the Disco Jazz Orchestra.
That's right.
So everybody wanted to compete.
But you see, they had an orchestra,
right?
Full of wind instruments and all these things. We had bands. They also had a band.
Yeah.
Okay, but there were two different things, because they would play all these orchestral music and all that, which most of us could not digest properly.
All right. So you started the Flames. How did you all get together? I know you were in the school. How did you get together?
Well, I think somebody donated a set of instruments to the school.
Right.
And there was some of the students who were playing various instruments, like the guitars, mainly guitars. We had a guy called Patrick Koju.
Koju, yeah.
Yeah.
Chick Ferret.
Chick Ferret, that's
Yeah.
right. And he played the melodica, but he was very good on the keyboards.
Right.
By that time, we didn't have keyboards for bands.
Yeah.
So he played the melodica, and then later on transferred to the keyboard. It was one of the first introductions of the keyboard to bands. Yeah.
Well, here we are on I Have a Story to Tell on ZFM 101.9, and I have the greatest pleasure of interviewing and talking to one of Ghana's greatest highlife icons, modern highlife, Ben Brako. And Ben, one of the things we do here on this program is that we ask you to select numbers that you really like, and we play them in between the talking. So what's your first selection?
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, good. We'll play into your one of your numbers.
Yes.
And then you tell us about it. Go on.
Okay.
Z 101.9 FM.
Your lifestyle, literature, and business radio.
The evergreen music of Ben Brako, who is our guest tonight on I Have a Story to Tell. Ben, that's a beautiful number. I swear by it all the time. But it's not time for us to talk about how you got there, because there's a lot of water on the bridge before you got to do that wonderful album that is now a perennial for everybody. So you were with the Famous Flames, and what was the experience like? It really exposed you to, and I know you got into trouble because Parker, my brother who played the drums for you, was telling me about how he had to ask for permission, and the permission was granted, and he broke the rules and everything, and so everybody went after him. Did that happen to you?
Not really. My experience was a bit different. I think in fact, we all had to go to his house. I think it was in Takoradi at that time.
That's right.
You know, and that evening we're taking a train to go to Kumasi.
All right.
Okay, to play on a professional circuit. Okay, and you know, it was unheard of at that time. So, but my parents. My father was somewhere in the bushes,
right?
You know, but my mother allowed me to go with the band, with all her blessings. So it was a very uplifting experience as a young teenager,
Right.
to be able to go out on your own, and instead of doing a long vacation work or something, being bored the whole time, we were actually doing exciting things, playing live music to the public and traveling all over the place, playing different venues. We even went to Lome at one
Right.
time, yeah. We played with people like CK Man, and his carousel,
So, yeah.
at his venue, at
Carousel Agogo.
yeah, Princess, and the Princess
That's
Cinema
right.
Complex, yeah. We played in Kumasi. We played with Jedu Blay, in
the early
Kumasi
days,
has a place
yeah.
called the Millionaires,
Right, yeah.
We had exciting musicians, renowned, that we were interacting with, and it was heavenly, I must say.
Yeah, because when I talked to you, I realized that in those days, if you were not too sharp in class, people would not allow you to do the things you did, because I remember some of the top athletes in schools were very clever people.
Yeah.
And also the kind of people who played in your band, Parkovna, Reggie Sawyer, Chick Ferret,
Yeah.
Mensa Brown, and all the rest
Yeah.
were very clever young people.
That's right. That's right.
Why was that? Can you tell me? Because I think that when you have a diversion, like you're playing music, you won't have time to study. How do you combat it? Because I know you did very well in the O level. So
Yeah, well, you had to combine both. I mean, you were basically there for studying, for school.
right,
And this was a great distraction, which took quite a bit of time, but it never displaced you from your academic work, And because of that, we also took pleasure in making sure that we're doing well academically, Because, it's very easy to get distracted when you're doing music and you're getting known all over the place, and people are inviting you to places, and you may start drinking and doing all kinds of things,
Yeah.
But we had to maintain the discipline.
yeah, I realized, because I remember the first time I saw you guys play in Cape Coast. I mean, the girls were screaming their heads off. You were the heartthrob at the time. Slim Lean, Ben Brako, singing all kinds of songs from soul to, you were something else. What influenced
I
you?
remember your brother,
Yeah,
was a lead singer too.
Jerry.
Yeah,
Yeah, he played for the Saints. Yeah.
yeah.
So but then he was in Infantsfam, and then he left and went. He was ahead of us. So when you guys went into the Famous Flames, he was playing in Accra.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and I remember that was the era of the soul music.
Yeah, that's right.
Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding,
James Brown,
and all that, and we all took it very, very seriously.
Yeah.
Sam Cooke and it was something else.
Yeah.
But what
even the Beatles?
Yeah, the Beatles. I mean, they were the ones who I actually brought a certain atmosphere to secondary schools because of the way they dressed.
That's right.
The kind of jackets they wore, the beat boots.
The Beatles boots.
Yeah,
you had to have one.
You had to have one. Yes. And our parents thought we were crazy. Because, I mean, why would you want to wear boots like that and all that? But that's what drove us.
I remember a particular story.
You're
where,
right.
I had to have Beatle boots.
Yeah.
I bothered my mom, and I need the Beatle boots. So one day she got fed up. She said, let's go. She took me to town. And things were hard for us because there were so many of us. And she took me to this shop and bought me Beetle boots, and as soon as she bought it, what I said? I said, thank God. And my mom said, oh, so be the amount of the I sacrificed to buy this useless thing for you. And instead of thanking me, it's like you say God has created a miracle for you, right?
Yeah. So what influenced you to play music? Because do you come from a musical family or what?
Of a sort, yeah. My grandmother was very musical. We had a piano at home.
All right.
She played in the church.
The Methodist Church.
The Methodist Church. She actually will sit on the keyboard and play, in the big church in Chapel Square.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I guess there was music in my family, and my mother was always singing. And that is a habit that I took. If you ask my wife, she would tell you that I'm forever humming. I'm forever running tunes in my mind. I was always like that from
I've noticed
childhood.
that about a lot of Fanti women, my aunts in Elmina. You get up in the morning and one is singing, another one is singing up there, and
then they join
sing all.
forces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
My mother and her sisters,
Yeah.
whenever they meet each other, they will be singing, throughout. And I used to do that with my mom, and that's one of the things I miss about her, because,
Yeah.
always had it tuned.
Yeah, so we're on ZFM 101.9. My guest is the legendary Ben Brako. I'm very proud to say he's been a friend of mine for many years. So I grabbed him on this particular show for him to tell us about his journey to stardom and to becoming a legend before his time. Ben, so you were in Augustine's and our Famous Flames, played everywhere. I saw you not only in Cape Coast, I saw you in Accra. You played at Metropole, you played at Tiptoe, you played at Apollo Theatre. For those of you who are too young, Accra was full of nightclubs, and live music was very, very important. So we had Tiptoe at the Circle, we had Apollo Theatre, that's also around the Asylum, and then we had the Touche, which was a closed-in nightclub. We had what was it? Club La Bamba and all those places. Yeah. And you played there.
That's right.
And that was the time that when bands like you played, students who would come back home for holidays would find a way of coming to see you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then so you finished finished Augustine's, and then you did your sixth form in Tema.
That's right. Tema.
Why that quantum leap from Cape Coast to?
I don't know. I wanted a varied experience. St. Augustine's was a boys' school,
Right.
and at that time, the headmaster, Mr. S.K. Opong,
Right.
was appointed as the Deputy Minister of Education
Right.
by the
Buzia,
That's
yeah.
right. And so he had a very good friend called F.K. Bois, who was the headmaster of Tema Secondary
Father
School.
Bois,
Father
the
Bois.
historian. Yeah.
Yes, double first class on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so he said, okay, he will ask Father Bois if he can take me for sixth form. So he did that, and I was perfectly happy with it because it was a co-educational institute, and you got to see a whole different set of rules and behaviors, and interactions, just interacting with women or girls at that time. It was very exciting, and we learned a lot, that you couldn't learn in boys' school.
I think women have a civilizing effect on boys, I mean, when you're in a boys' school, you're a little wild. But when you come across a school with women and you're competing with them and doing things with them, it's fascinating, don't you think so?
Yeah, it is, but it works both ways. Because
That's been for you.
It also gets you, can get very exciting, Yeah, it has both effects, yeah.
So Ben, after Tema, did you continue with your music?
Yes, I did, but I did with like television, GBC.
Right.
They would invite me for a
Time
special
for showbiz and bandstand
and then Mike Higgins show,
right?
And stuff like that, and I would go and sing. So I kept the music thing going. The music thing never left me anyway.
We're going to go into that in a very, very big way. So you were still a musician. You didn't have the band with you all the time, but you could perform on television and on radio. And
That's right.
I'm sure that when you went into a nightclub and there was a band playing, they would back you.
Yes,
because that was a standard thing, wasn't it?
My brother would push me to go and sing Otis Redding,
right?
At like where there's a dance,
right,
with the live band, Yeah.
Because as I remember when they call your name, everybody would say, "Sing, Mr. Pitiful." Well, with Ben Brako on, I have a story to tell, and it's an exciting story. Ben was born in Accra, spent his time in Cape Coast and a lot of the cocoa growing areas in Ghana. His father was with the cocoa affairs and Ministry of Agriculture. I think we call the extension officers. And he went to St. Augustine's, and that's where he started playing in a band. But as I said, and I leaked to the audience out there, Ben was a clever chap. He didn't fail his O-levels. And then he went to Tema Secondary School. By that time, he'd made his name as a great singer. So he sang solo on various media in Accra and elsewhere. So Ben, after Tema, you went to the University of Ghana.
That's right.
I see you didn't stray away from the family norm because you did agricultural economics.
That's right. That's
right. Legon must have been a wonderful experience for you. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Legon was such a wonderful experience. And, first of all, they used to breed a certain characteristic, where you had servants come and clean your room those days, and serve you food in the cafeteria and the dining rooms and all that, So they were trying to create an elite group of people, so-called educated people. I found it very instructive. And then also I met one of the lecturers who was my hall tutor, called Professor Kofi Asariopoku.
Right.
And I thought it was going to be a very boring thing having these meetings with the tutor, but it turned out to be very exciting. This guy confirmed a lot that was going on in my mind, about African culture and traditions, and so it give validity to my instincts, So I started looking at myself more from a true African perspective, right, than somebody who was being groomed to duplicate whiteness or that culture anyway, And actually that was part of the basis of me starting to write Highlife songs, I would sit in my room playing the guitar and just working out songs. I wrote so many songs. In fact, all the songs on Maya I wrote in Legon, apart from one.
Really?
Yes. That was Adum Tomorrow that I created after Legon. But you know, it gave me the conscious. So this is where that song you played, Etui,
Yes.
comes in.
All right. Tell me about it.
You know what Etui is?
Tell me about it. I want you to tell us everything.
Etui is a god in Cape Coast,
Oh, I
a
see.
traditional god. Okay? And Etui is the god of the lagoon when it breaks into the sea, okay,
see.
to refresh, because the lagoon is isolated.
Right.
And without being refreshed from the sea, it goes stale. So every year,
So the Bakatui.
Bakate, yes. Aha.
Okay.
This is how it keeps alive and refreshed. And so the whole halubalu about what friend the traditional ceremony, what do you call it? Fetu Afashe.
Afashe,
It's
yeah.
about Etui.
Right.
Etui is the god of that. Okay, so it's the god of refreshing, it's the god of renewal. It's about harvesting. You know, most of the traditional festivals are about harvesting.
That's
anyway,
right,
You
yeah.
know, yeah. So I got to know a bit about Etui, you know, and in that song, I say I call on Etui that Etui Mbejihin.
Right.
Okay, because we are losing who we are. Okay, so I say things like, "Oh, mo browa, ebobo abrewa pusu pusu,
All right.
ho nebo hu kwase a aye, bo porwenyim hwemaye,
That's a lamentation.
behye wo hwehwemaye, awa enye bibinyi, awso enye bronyi." Ewa, we say things like, but then which am a winyano. Okay, that is the disparity between the so-called elite
Yes.
and the ordinary Ghanaians, you know, which was very stark to me as I tried to relate at the beginning, that there's the bush people and then there's the enlightened people, you know, and, you know, they didn't quite cross paths.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about, you know, and I wrote this when I was in Legon.
You must feel very strong about it because it's a form of radical thinking, I think, because you go to university where you go to get a degree so that you could get a good job. And in those days, if you had your degree, you walked into a job almost immediately.
Oh, yes.
But I must say something that do you ever think that the reason why you had that kind of elitist support in Legon was because there was an idea that we had to groom a cadre core of people who were going to manage the system. And the system was inherited from the European.
That's right.
So you had to have some kind of knowledge of how they did things.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was, do you think that it was totally about you being Europeanized?
Yeah, well, it was about grooming a certain group
Yeah,
to take over the system they had created.
right.
Okay, the administration. Okay,
Yeah.
and to run it. So you will find that inevitably, those who took over the realms became the new white men. They occupied the bungalows, the advantages,
Yeah.
you know, the elitism, and they ran the stuff as against what would traditionally have been done. Okay, so let's say the colonialists came and took over and ran their own administration.
Right.
Okay, and they were obviously exploiting us. Okay, now they convinced most of us who went to school that that was the better way, that was the modern way. Okay, but what we didn't realize and still don't realize to a large extent is that we were batting for them.
That's very true.
Yeah. And they were still making a lot of money out of us, whereas our people were in need. And we ended up looking down on our own people, which is a big tragedy, you know, because they are the real people. So I was these things were festering in me all this time, and I had to express it one way or the other. Even though I must say that a lot of people listen to the music and, don't matter that.
No, they don't understand it because it's so far removed. So you were in Legon, what hall were you in?
Ikwafu.
Oh, it was called Legon Hall was the gentleman's hall. I won't talk about Commonwealth Hall. Oh, I see.
Yes.
So you were writing music in Legon. Were you playing? Were you playing to audiences?
Yes, we did 2 performances. I formed my own group.
Right. What were they called?
Agromba Guduriba. Okay. Because I heard the name Kusum Agromba.
Yes.
Those days, and I thought that this is part of the generation, of Agromba. So I named it Agromba Guduriba.
And who were the members, if you can remember?
Yeah, there was a guy called Agbo Aye.
Yeah.
He was a music student and he played the traditional flute.
Right.
And we had Victor Alassan, who now runs
Star
Oil. Yes.
Yeah.
And we had a guy called Atongo, is an Ashanti guy, very nice guy. He played the lead guitar.
Right.
We had Shelele, and we had Seth Vosagwe, okay, who was UN
Yes.
8. Yeah.
Yes, I know him.
You know him?
I know Seth.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So they were all playing with you?
Yeah, yes.
All right. And so you finished Legon, you got your degree, and what else did you go to do after Legon? What did you do? Did you get a European appointment?
Well, I had some fabulous jobs, First of all, before finishing Legon, I formed the band basically to test my music, the music I've been writing.
Right.
Okay. So apart from my music, we played a couple of Ephraim Amu's songs. And that was the influence of Agbo Aye, who was a music student, and he wanted us to have that traditional ethos as part of our, So we played only a couple of gigs, okay? But the interesting thing is that many years later, people still remembered some of the songs, okay? Anyway, so after Legon, I went to Achimota School for my national service. Okay, so I taught agriculture for a year. They wanted me to stay on, but I got a good job with Alpha West Africa Lines as a commercial manager, and it was a great transformation. So even though they wanted me to stay on at Achimota, I packed my bag and went to Tema, and took up that job. I did that for quite a few years. And then,
were you playing then?
No. At that time, I was only playing within, not outside.
Right.
In my head, I was always, working out music. And, so I did the shipping thing and commodities and stuff. I learned a lot about business. And then I worked with Kwanzaa Film Africa.
Really?
Yeah.
So you had some influence with Heritage Africa, because when you're talking about the brofilization of the...
I had a lot of influence from Kwanzaa. A lot of things he stood for resonated with me.
Good.
Okay. He basically wanted to expose the sham of the elites, and the above some that came to paint everything about us in darkness, So we look upon our religion, our food, our way of dressing, everything, was put in the shadows, And we up to today, we still do a lot of that.
Well, it's amazing that you're saying this, because there's a coincidence, because Heritage Africa Artabus Mafi was Kofi Bucknell, went to St. Augustine.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's great.
He took over from me
Oh, I
at
see.
Film Africa, yes.
Great. Well, we are talking to the legendary Ben Brako on I Have a
Quincy
Story.
Atabusum film.
Yes, that's right. We're talking to the legendary Ben Brako on I Have a Story to Tell on ZFM 101.9. And as we talk, we also play music. So what's the next song? Indasi.
Insasi.
Indasi. Okay.
Understanding.
Yes, understanding. Okay.
Z 101.9 FM.
He is the one on the upper side of me on this program. I Have a Story to Tell on ZFM 101.9. The legend is talking to me, and I'm very excited. So you had gone from Legon, and you were working now, and the music was all in your mind. But before we go on with your story, what was the morale behind this particular song in Sasi?
Yes.
Because for the first time I'm listening, and I'm getting to understand that it's richer and it's a big story.
Indeed, it is. Yeah. You know, we're talking about the fundamental interaction between man and woman, which, you know, when you boil it down, comes to sex. Okay. So I said, da. Offer Benin, offer Bessia. It's to Bessia Kaya. Yes, I say. Yes, everybody is still a gentleman to the Benin is a champion.
So if it's a man is going all over the place sleeping, people call him a champion. But when it's a woman, she's a prostitute.
Yes. So, and then we say, oh, I whooping with him. So your whole ethos and consciousness is tied to your sexual, behaviors.
Right.
As a woman. Whereas as a man, it doesn't matter.
They don't ask a man when are you getting married or are you married.
No. In fact, they cheer you and say, hey, Charlie.
This guy is a tough guy. Anyway, that's a beautiful thing. And we'll be talking a little bit more about your Africanness. And I know you have very strong views on Ghana and the state of Ghana. So we'll get down to that. But tell us a little bit more about your story, your life journey. Because you worked in Tema and you ended up in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about the progression from Tema to Europe.
Well, I when I left Film Africa, I started doing business with a friend of mine who was recently deceased, called Duncan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a company called
Didon.
Ecodoc Agencies, yes.
Yes.
And we actually created a restaurant,
All right.
called Finger Licking.
Where was that?
It was at the Usu Crossroads. The building.
Yes, I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we were doing business. It was going well. But suddenly I started feeling dissatisfied with my life. I felt that I had to do music and record my songs. And I felt that if I didn't do it, one day when I'm old like I am now,
You're not.
I'll reminisce and regret not doing the music. So I packed myself because I felt that I could not, after what I'd been doing and the circles I was moving in, I couldn't very well just vanish and start music, doing music. So I went to England, I went to London, and reinvented myself as a musician, basically, yeah. And I started doing music full time,
You had some collaborators in Britain, because I remember coming down with to do my program Sincerely Yours, and I met John Kay. I think Kwesi Ting. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is it Kwesi Ting? Yeah. And I realized that you were in that circle. Were you playing to audiences, or were you just in the studio putting together what you...
Well, I started working in the studio.
Okay.
Because my primary aim was to produce my music, okay? And when I did that, that led to invitations to do shows and all that. So
which studios did you work in? And who were the people who helped you with your music?
Yeah, well, initially, I just wanted to have the experience of recording in the studio.
Right.
So I met this Israeli, Jewish guy, actually, who was a lecturer at one of the universities in London. But he was a magnificent guitarist. He was introduced by my late cousin, Roddy Teague.
Yeah.
So we gelled, and then I did 2 tracks. One is called Kofi Kofi.
Right.
The other one is called One Man No Chop. It was an extended 45.
Right.
Okay. But I produced it just to get the experience of recording. And then after that, I was ready to do my first album. And there was a friend of mine I was doing business with called Ben Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's in Ghana at the moment, yeah. And we used to work from his office, actually. He used to do computing and all that. And he introduced me to John Kay.
All right.
You know, and I listened to John Kay's work, and I realized that he was a very good producer. So we did a deal, and we worked at a studio owned by a guy called Dave Yowell, a white guy, you know, but he was a fantastic musician and a good bassist. You know, he played most of the bass on the Bayer album.
Really?
Yeah. So between him and John Kay, you know, they did the technical work and the studio recording, yeah, and I just provided the songs and made sure that they stayed true.
Because Bayer is an unbelievable album, I must say. It's something that I could listen to day in and day out. It never fades. You put a lot into it. Now, this is where I'll ask you about this high sense of cultural integrity that you promote in your music. You've told us a little bit about what influenced you, but sometimes it fades. But yours gets stronger by the hour or by the day.
Yes, yes. I'm getting more and more convinced about the fact that we've been led astray, you know. And one of the worst things anybody could do, or any people could do, is to abandon their culture and the traditions, because these have been forged over years of experience, okay? And we just seem to have discarded it like an old cloth, no longer wanted. And it saddens me a lot, you know.
But how do we get it back?
How do we get it back?
Yeah, it's a problem. Huh? What's the solution from your point of view?
The fact is that our culture is still intact, albeit not as tight and not as prominent, because it's been debased a lot, okay? But if you go to the rural areas or to the communities, even Accra here,
Yeah.
you know that we're about to have the ban on drumming.
It started yesterday.
Yeah. So that tells you that the culture is still there, but it's been suppressed. We need to let it loose, let it free, because if without that we become slaves, all of us, okay? We just keep copying. Look at what happens in Parliament, you know, like they're play acting. I went to court the other day and I was amazed. It was like a comedy, you know, wearing these wigs and speaking, you know, in the language that does not communicate with the other people that are being attacked, you know, and it's adversarial, when in our way it's conciliatory. You know, we try to build bridges rather than break them, you know. It is not our way. I mean, our people cannot deal with the police. You know that they cannot deal with the court of law, because it's a whole different culture and understanding. And when people are faced with these things, they have no recourse. And we think that, oh, these people, classical, you know, or uncouth, or, you know, all kinds of things, you know. So but they are the real people. They are us. And they are the people who still hold dear their ancestry, okay? And there's something fundamental about culture. It is a rotating thing. You know, we have the dead, who are our ancestors. We have the living, and then we have the unborn, okay? And everything that we have, we are only holding in trust for the unborn. You know, the philosophy is deep, you know? And we are the only culture in the world that is landed, in the sense that if today you wanted to go and get a piece of land, you could go through your busiapenyin to the head Odikro and the chief, and they will allocate you a piece of land. It may not be a big, but it will, at least you have a land if you wanted to build on it or you wanted to farm or do something.
But that is fast vanishing, because we have a very sad situation where land has become a problem. And you said something that's very interesting, that the modern system is adversarial. And I believe very strongly that that is what is actually bothering us, because harmony and consonance are very much part and parcel of who we are as Africans or Ghanaians.
Yeah.
And the fact that, because I was an MP, and
I know.
And, I know.
Honorable.
That's past. But in Parliament, if we were not before the cameras or were not in the chamber, we're very close, because that's where the happiness was, and if you belong to a different political party than mine, didn't mean that you couldn't be my friend or I couldn't, and that is the undercurrent of who we are. But as soon as we get into the chamber and there's a debate, then we start doing funny things. So I have a lot of sympathy with what you're saying. And so you brought out Bayer, and I think it's time for us to have a third selection so that we can talk a little bit more about your music.
Z 101.9 FM.
ZFM 101.9, and the program on air is I Have a Story to Tell. And my name is Fritz Bafor, and my guest is the legendary Ben Brako. And he's taking us through a swirl of stories and emotions. Born in Cape Coast, educated in 10 primary schools throughout Ghana because his father was a cocoa extension officer. He went to St. Augustine's. He played in that famous band, the Famous Flames, and then he went on to Tema Secondary School. He never lost his music, but he was a good student. Went to University of Ghana, did agricultural economics, and then he got a job teaching at Achimota School during his national service. Didn't stay there, worked in Tema, and then went to work with Akwansa in his advertising company. And then he left and went to England to find himself. And his real self, he says, is music. But he is very interesting because he has a very, very strong belief that we've been hard done by the colonial authorities when they made us diminish our culture, and he believes the essence of our renewal and resurgence is in our culture. Have I said that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. We've been talking about culture, the fact that we have moved away from our culture. But you were educated in a Catholic school, and you talked about the Latin and all that. But I think that we've not done well by ourselves, because you mentioned Father Bois. And I'm saying that the curriculum in our schools, has it helped us? Because when we talk about our history, for example, it usually starts from the arrival of Diego de Zambuja, who wasn't the one who arrived first.
Don
it
Diego
was,
de
it was
Zambuja.
Tao Santarem and Fernão Gomez who came first. And Diego came and conned the Elmina people and built the castle. But before that, we had nationhood.
That's right.
We had our culture and everything. And nobody knows about our history before the white man came. And even with the history that we're being taught, it's all about dates and not about the reasons for events happening.
That's right.
And so what do you think we should do? How do we push for people to start looking at our history and writing it? Because with modern technology and the way it helps archaeology, we're getting to know a little bit more about who we are and what we've done in the past.
That's right.
Because even before the white man came, we had the Gonja Chronicles, which came out in I think it was in the 12th and 13th centuries, written in Arabic, but it chronicled some of the African states that were predated the Europeans. I know we have a lot more, but I'm just giving you an example. So how do we get to do that, to learn more about ourselves? Because the fact that we don't know too much about ourselves makes us, we're not confident.
Yes, it's very true. I mean, simple things tell you why we're not confident. Before you get an education, you have to learn a new language. So that already tells you that your language is not good enough to be educated in. But it's good enough for you to be turned into a Christian or you see what I mean. Yes, they don't supply you with textbooks in your language, but they supply you with the Bible in your language. So it's all a planned thing. You grow up not believing that as an African, as a Ghanaian, as an Ashanti or a Fanti or whatever you are, that you are a substantial person. You are as good or better than anybody on this earth. Okay? And so you start acquiring habits and characteristics that are not your own, that have not been evolved within the context of your environment, and then you start going against your own people. You look down on those who cannot speak English, okay? And we've found out much to our cost that a lot of people who speak very good English are as dumb as they come, and a lot of people who don't speak English have the wisdom of the ancients, okay? And if we're sensible enough to study in our own language, they define education. Education is defined as knowledge of your own culture and language. So most of us who think we are educated, we are illiterate by proper definition.
Yeah, because we don't know anything about ourselves. Yeah.
We don't even know how to speak. In a gathering, in a meeting, we're not raised in the proper way. We should have been taught all these things in our infancy, up to like age 7 or 8, before even attempting to learn any other language, anything. Because then it would have been grounded in us. And you will find that all the cultures that are doing well are true to their own culture. All the people who have a strong mind, and are making waves in this world, the Chinese, the Indians, and
the Japanese.
The Japanese, they believe in themselves, and look, they're taking over the world. The Chinese is just a marvel, So we've been fed a very poor diet in terms of our thinking and our culture, and the fact that we abandon our own. It's a big insult, to our own selves, that you denigrate your own parents, or those progeny that you came from. That is a fool. There's no other description that fits somebody who does that.
Yeah, I'm with Ben Brako on I Have a Story to Tell, and he's been telling us his story. And one thing I gathered from his music was that it has a very, very deep cultural coloring. I mean, very deep. I mean, he talks about our culture. He's proud of our culture. And one thing that fascinates me is your command of the Fanti language, because Fanti is it's a beautiful language. Though I'm part Fanti, my Fanti is horrible. And so when I hear people speaking Fanti so well, how did that come about?
Well, like I said, I live very close to the real people, even though I wasn't given the permission to interact with them. But, you play with them, you work with them, and you get to understand, their form of communication. Okay. So,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, so that informed a lot of my thinking, very much, and I have this affable attitude, but I know my mind, I don't succumb to things that
Sorry, let's have some music.
Z 101.9 FM.
ZFM 101.9. Sorry about that little interlude. We had an external disturbance here, and so we had to resolve it. I am here in the studio of ZFM 101.9 talking to the legendary Ben Brako. He's told us about his school days, his early beginnings, and how his great influences, and how he got into music. And now we're talking about culture. We're talking about Ghana. We're talking about the African mind. And I just asked him about his Fanti. He speaks, his Fanti is so clean. And I was asking him how he got to speak it so well, because that is an attribute. I've always been fascinated by people who speak fluent African languages. We've been told not to call it a vernacular, and I'm glad that we've been told not to call it the vernacular, because our language is not a vernacular. It's about us.
Yeah.
It's how we express ourselves.
We should stop calling ourselves tribes.
Yes, I've never believed in tribes.
Yeah, we're not tribes.
Because we are people.
Yeah.
And
ethnic group.
Yeah, even ethnic group. I mean, what is an ethnic group? Because when you talk about Ashanti, it's not by blood, it's by ordinance. Yes. You're an Ashanti because you pay allegiance to the Asantehene and you follow the customs and the culture. And you could be somebody born in Cape Coast who has accepted that that's what you want to be. And it's accepted by the people there because that is what they believe. Yeah. And, you know, you go up to the north and we've got people who steal wives. So where's the purity? If you go and steal wives from another group of people and you have children, you can't claim that the children are by blood. It's who you are.
Yeah, that's why in a lot of Akan, culture, it's matrilineal.
Yeah.
because you can't go wrong that way. And we know the human weaknesses and foibles, so the blood is always, the bloodlines at least are a bit clean.
That's accepted. But as I said, a friend of mine was telling me, and I believe what he says, and I've now adopted that before you're a Ghanaian, you're an African. I think Africa comes before being a Ghanaian.
Oh,
because,
yes. I mean, Ghana is just an administered territory.
That's right.
It doesn't have any particular cultural purity to it, because it was just carved as if, you just cut a piece of land for yourself and there's an anthill. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You still cut through the anthill to do whatever you want. So that's the situation we are in and have accepted.
Right.
But historically, it's difficult to get rid of that concept.
Yeah.
But we have to come together as the ethnic groups within it, and work together as ourselves. Because before you are Ghanaian, you are an Ashanti, a Ga, a Guan, or something.
Yeah.
That's what makes you Ghanaian, and not the other way.
Right. It's about consonance, it's about unity of purpose. Ben, you are creative, and a lot of creatives have very strong opinions about how their countries are run and some of the things that they do. I'm not going to go too much into politics, but in Ghana right now, we have an existential threat in the fact that our water bodies are being polluted. Our forests have been invaded, even the reserves. And we're in danger of losing out big time, because out of the 16 regions in Ghana, only 2 have escaped from the deprivation of the greed of Galamsey and the other things we're doing to our country. And you felt very strongly about that. Could you elucidate or elaborate on that? These thoughts that you have about the way our country should be, the kind of values we should support and uphold, so that this country will be a great country.
Yeah, because without culture at the base of governance, you lose all values. Okay, like a typical example is our traditional religion. Okay, we revere water bodies, we revere trees and forests. We know that they are all part of what makes us human beings, and without them, we'll perish. You understand? And then they tell us that, oh, you're being fetish, you're being backwards, that kind of thing. And look at what's happening. There's no value to anything but greed and money, to the extent that the governments that we have cannot protect what is valuable to us. Okay? And it's mind-boggling that they can't control this thing. Okay, they have to be serious and strict. And one of the reasons is that there's no filter of the culture in our governance. You see what I mean? Even the British that we copy have a House of Lords.
That's right.
Why don't we have a House of Chiefs to put a cultural filter on all the decisions? You see what I mean? Make sure that it makes sense to the Ghanaian. We don't have these things. So we just copy blindly. We give away our wealth, and it's not even ours to give away. It's for the unborn. We're going completely crazy. And we have a group of people that think that they are the new white men, and wouldn't even give us a proper education. Our people are losing more and more who they are. They don't know where they're coming from, and it's just going on. So nobody's bothering about it. who is part of governance. And that is wrong. I mean, you think that if, for instance, the Gamanche, okay, was in charge of administration in Accra, the roads would be this way. It will not be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they are our people. They, commute and live with the community. They are part of the community. These MPs, anybody can go and stand for MP anywhere. Doesn't live with the people, doesn't understand their issues, and instead of acting like the servant that they're supposed to be, they act like the lords. It is all upside down and crazy. And yet nobody's talking anything. Nobody's saying nothing.
Why is that? Because it seems as if Ghanaians do not have a place where they can seek redress. It doesn't seem to happen.
At all. And this is what the colonialists have made sure, by educating a lot of us in Rota, that we fail to be creative and think. We just go by, a certain system, and that's it. It's just mind-boggling.
But I'm going to ask you, the Ghanaian, or when the colonials were in power, we took power away from them. And yeah, we did. I mean, we got our independence. And it was from, yes, to a certain extent. I don't think we can disabuse ourselves of the fact that certain people realized our potential and fought for it, and we were on our way. But somewhere along the line, we lost it. Or you don't believe it?
We were never on our way. Just look back, 69 years.
Right.
And the country is getting worse and worse. Okay. The people who are supposed to be the educated and knowledgeable people who have led this country, okay, haven't had a clue what to do. They only go to their bosses, with the people outside, for solutions, okay? And a lot of the solutions have been exposed as fraudulent, okay? But done in a very nice way, with the United Nations, with this, with that, IMF, it's all a contract. They take much more out of our country than they give us, and we're still standing for this. Nobody's saying boo.
So are you saying that there have been no pluses?
No what?
No pluses. I mean, our country, Ghana, 1957. No pluses? I mean, there must have been some achievements that you must applaud.
No, don't make me laugh. I mean, even within Africa, Ghana is lagging a lot. You look at even Benin is doing well. Burkina Faso, we live in a fertile land, and yet we import our vegetables from a desert place. Are we doing well?
You are the agriculturist.
We import over $200 million of rice, and yet we have a glut of rice produced locally, which even when the government directs that government institutions should buy rice, they still refuse and buy imported rice. Some of it being plastic. I mean, it's crazy. We have to be aware of these things and do something about it. Okay?
Now, how do we do something about it? Because I know these lamentations,
yes.
And you're creative. You've had the exposure. You've seen what it's like. How do we turn things around
First, we have to be
all right.
Ghanaian. We have to be true to ourselves. We have to know who we are, and we have to know
How do we know who we are? It's that's the problem.
Look, for instance, let's just say, look, in Kumasi,
Yes.
the Asantehene
Yeah.
is very powerful. Controls the whole Asante, which is a rare thing in Ghana because the rest have broken up, the chieftaincy and all that. But in Kumasi, right in the center of Kumasi, there is a forest that is guarded and protected, okay, by the Asantehene's decree. Okay, nobody's allowed to build there, nobody's allowed to intrude because it is the lifeline of the people. Because traditionally we understand nature, we understand the importance of preserving water, land, and keep it going. Okay, you don't just come ride roughshod and then change things and leave the soil depleted. What about the future? The present is for the future. It's not for the past. Okay, so we have to be serious. I mean, we are play acting. You go to the court, they're wearing wigs and play acting. You go to parliament, they're wearing big suits. How does that represent Ghanaians? Why you go on our television and they're all wearing suits? Who are they speaking to? Are they speaking to Ghanaians? They're not. They're speaking to themselves. Okay? It's a group of elite that has hijacked. Actually, they've been catapulted in that position deliberately to seize power from our legitimate leaders. And these are the chiefs. Okay? This is legal because it is written on paper. But when it's written on paper, it doesn't matter to the people who wrote it because if it goes against them, they discard it. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. When it was time to give back the lands, and they went to the British, showed them the treaty, they threw it away, said it's null and void. It's the same legal thing. But when it works against them, it is irrelevant. Okay? And that's why they painted Mugabe so black. All these years, they tried to, paint him. And you see, the media is used against us so strongly that we even desire things that are, inimical to our own interest. We don't know who we are.
ZFM 101.9, and the voice you're hearing is Ben Brako, the singer, but very much an activist because he said some wonderful things here that I think my audience out there should listen. That in Africa we think about our ancestors, ourselves, and the unborn. So it's the past, the present, and the future, and that the present works for the future. I think that we should take that. It's very deep, and he's been talking about the need for us to look at our cultural values and uphold them and raise them to a certain level that they become part of us. He said quite a few things that I'm sure people out there will not agree, but I believe that this is food for thought. Ben, so our educational system, you've been a recipient of the modern educational system that was introduced by the outsiders. You took it to university level and you went and lived in England and you saw at first hand what they did with their education, what we're not doing with education we didn't have. So tell us, how do we resolve this thing with education? How do we get our children to learn a lot more about ourselves?
Yeah. First of all, we need to start raising our children in awareness and confidence about who they are, where they come from, what is the philosophy of life, what is the raison d'etre of living at all, what are the things of value, you know what I mean? But we don't do that. Some people are even proud that their children cannot speak their language. You know, and we do a lot of stupid things like we say we have a national anthem that most of our people do not understand what the hell it's saying. You know, and you know, the values of the content itself, it's a sham. You know, and describing Ghana as a homeland is almost like saying that we are British owned. What the hell is a homeland? You know what I mean? God bless our homeland, Ghana.
But what about Yeraja Asasini?
Now you're talking. It resonates. It's deep. You know, and if you listen to the words, you see that, man, you know, they're talking. They're not just sprinkling colors, you know, for fancy sake. You're right here, assassini. Or your body was my head. Moja na nanu figu foam. Ewa. We are talking. You know? But lift high the flag of Ghana. What is it saying? Nothing.
Lift High the Flag of Ghana is not the song that we use anymore. It's God Bless Our Homeland. You are Kolo.
I grew up on Lift High the Flag. And God Bless Our Homeland Ghana is no better. You know?
Yeah. You mentioned something that 69 years, we've been 69 years. But 69 years in America, 1776, America was still in its diapers because they had their Civil War, I think, in 1660 something. And so we're not there yet. So there's hope for us. That's what I want to hear from you.
There is a lot of hope because, like I said, our culture has been preserved and we can easily resurrect it, okay? Okay, but we have to focus on that and know that that difference is what makes us who we are, okay? It's not by copying others. Their experience is totally different, okay? And they came from a place that did not have the blessings, you know? They are people who half the year cannot grow anything, okay? And they get desperate and they kill each other to survive. So this is all their psyche, okay? And they control the population. Look, they're not landed people. The land is owned by the monarchy, historically. You understand? And these people are serfs. That means they are allowed to crop the land, not for themselves, but for the elite. So this has been their whole life. And they've exported it, you know, all over the world. You know, look at America that you just mentioned. You know, that's genocide. Let's call a spade a spade. Where are the natives? So-called natives.
American Indians.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, they've taken everything. And then they come and take it. They took us, our people, many of us, that the energy should have been used in building our own to build our country. You know, and they still poo on us and call us shit country. You know? It doesn't make sense. And yet we go and kowtow to them, you know, because of the almighty dollar, because of greed. And greed is controlling us now. Even our whole political system is a sham. Let's face it. You know, we have to be aware that the fact that the political parties do not have any conscious difference or conceptually. You know, it's not based on a certain set of beliefs, but it's just gangs. If you are to be really true yourself, these are gangs because they come to power, they don't even appoint the right people. They appoint their people as reward, okay? And so when people are being corrupt, because they are getting back what they sold. Let's face it. I mean, let's be realistic. It's like we're joking. Come on now.
So this is ZFM. The program on air is I Have a Story to Tell. I have the legendary Ben Brako on air with me, and he's been telling us a story, and in the last few minutes, he's been railing against the system because he believes that we're hard done by, the fact that we're not looking at our culture, the essence of our culture, and what makes us. And in a lot of ways, I agree with him. Ben, so while we remunerate, we go over what you're talking about, let's do it while we're listening to your selection.
Z 101.9 FM. FM.
ZFM 101.9, and the program on air is I Have a Story to Tell. And my guest is the great Ben Brako. He's told us his life story, and then we went into the essence of being an African and the essence of finding out who we are in order to create what is pleasing and what is sustainable to ourselves. He's talked about governance, and he believes that if we had increased the power of chieftaincy in this country and recognized it, we'd be better off. Extreme candor, and like every creative, he stands by his words. And I'd like to remind you that in ancient times, wandering minstrels and storytellers were the ones who held the moral high ground for most people by telling people like what it should be. And so I'm very grateful that you're here today. Creativity is a very important facet of society. And I think in the latter part, we're realizing how profitable it is, but we're not taking advantage of the system. What do you think of the creative industry in Ghana? Music, film, what have you? And what opinions do you have? And what can you tell us in your own words?
Well, I think everything has gone to the dogs, we have such huge potential, we have such beauty in expressions and everything, even in our clothes, but instead of focusing on that and creating something beautiful for the world, to share with the world, we take the rubbish that they do and, put it up. It's like casting pearl before swine, honestly, We don't value the things that are valuable. And that's because we're wearing the wrong coats, in our minds, We're just copying. We've been trained to be like display photos, honestly. I don't want to go too far, but I think that you ask me direct questions, I have to tell you what's in my heart.
That's right.
Yeah, I have to tell you what's in my heart. And everybody knows, everybody, mature person in this country knows that government some people have hijacked the whole of governance to make money for themselves. The amount of corruption is unimaginable. You know what I mean? And you go everywhere, police, customs, everywhere.
So
they're undertaking.
Endemic.
Yes, and they're using our machinery to make money for themselves, and damn the ordinary people. Okay, and everybody's aware. Look at what happened at Elwak the other time. It's a massive scandal that so many people, when they're trying to get a job, and they want certain jobs, so much so that they have to pay. Everybody knows it. To get into the police force, to get into the army, and you think the government is not aware of this? To get into customs, they have to bribe their way to get employment. And still nothing is being done. Just like Galamsey, nothing is being done. Because certain interests are being protected. Let's face it, we're not idiots all sitting down, but we are playing idiocy, acting like we don't know or it doesn't matter. It matters. Because every penny that is stolen is a penny taken from a child, from their education, from their feeding, from their health, and one chance the Republic.
It's sad to hear, but I'm very glad to have had you on this program. But before I sign off, I want to ask you, your musical career, have you got any musical works in the offing?
Big time.
So when do we expect to have you come out with some wonderful music, the music that you play?
Like the proverbial politician, soon.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's out there. It's been fantastic talking to Ben Brako, a man of candor, a man, upright man, a brilliant musician, a wonderful Ghanaian and a wonderful African. It's been a wonderful privilege to have you on I Have a Story to Tell. And I hope we'll have another opportunity to talk about so many more things that I think are on your mind. This is Fritz Bafor on ZFM 101.9, and I'm saying good night to you. This is the last of the present series of I Have a Story to Tell, but I'm sure that ZFM will play back some of the wonderful people who have been on this program. So this is Fritz Bafor saying good night, and thank you, Ben, for coming and honoring me with this interview and this program of I Have a Story to Tell. Good night, and let's finish with our sick tune.
You're tuned in to Z 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
Thank you, bro.
Thank
you very
friends.
much. Things that I couldn't say.
You're a big boss man.